IVM. Did you know that acts of compassion and kindness produce an actual change in our brain, apart from conferring many social, emotional, and psychological benefits to us? In this episode of the Big Talk about Tiny Humans, Devishobha and I speak to Anjali Sharma and Deepika Ahuja, who have curated the book My Act of Heart, which contains 29 stories of real acts of compassion by children from around the world. They talk about how you and I can inculcate compassion in our children in today's hyper competitive world.
Almost every job in the world requires training, except parenting.
You need to learn parenting on the job, and that can be really hard.
Here on Big Talk about Tiny Humans, we want to help you navigate the world of parenting better and make your lives a little bit easier.
Hi, I'm Meghna.
And hi, I'm Devishobha.
Every week, we bring you the best research on parenting,
top tips from experts,
and actionable strategies to confront the numerous challenges that all parents and educators face.
So let's get started, shall we? At a time when heartbreaking news, headlines, and polarizing posts clog our news channels and social media feeds, it's never been more important to check in with ourselves for this important quality called compassion. And it's even more important to raise a child and our next generation with this beautiful and very important quality of compassion and kindness. But what can parents do to raise their children with this quality in an intentional manner? But the more important question is, do parents even have to do it, or are children born with a natural instinct for compassion? Turns out the children are just born with a very great natural instinct for compassion, not only towards others, towards other children, other animals, other beings, but also towards themselves. They are born with a great capacity for self-love as well. Welcome to this episode where we introduce a beautiful project that encompasses stories from all around the world of real acts of compassion from children that have shown an incredible capacity for compassion and kindness and have ended up surprising the adults around them, their parents, and have ended up teaching a lot more generosity and kindness and compassion to everyone around them. And bringing together this project, these beautiful stories together are two amazing women, Anjali Gurmukhani Sharma, and Deepika Ahuja, who have brought this project together, seeded this idea of bringing these stories, these real acts of compassion together. They have gone ahead and collected these stories from children from all across the world and ended up collecting 29 stories, 29 heart-moving stories. And we are going to be talking about how to raise compassionate children and all about the project. So welcome, Deepika and Anjali. We are so honored to have you on this show.
Thank you so much, Devishobha. It indeed is an honor for us to be with you and Meghna, and looking forward.
Thank you, Devishobha. No, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much. So I'm just, curious about this entire process. I mean, this is such a beautiful project. This holds so much of relevance, not only in today's world, but the subject of the matter, the book is such that it's going to be relevant forever. How did you get this? I mean, how did this idea seed itself, into, your consciousness? How did you get talking about it? And how did you get started with the project?
So, Devishobha, actually, my son has, as you said, that every child is born with, the natural feeling of compassion towards themselves and towards others.
Right.
And I have seen, some of very heart-touching acts of my son at a very young age. And I write a journal. So one day I was just writing about an incident that happened. And suddenly this idea struck me that there would be more parents in the world whose kids would be doing, these small little acts which touch hearts and which can probably motivate and encourage other people around the world to show compassion towards others. Because at times we feel that, we do not have time for a lot of things. And it is not necessary to, really invest your time. It can just happen on the go. So that struck the chord in me that, there should be something happening around it, and there would be a lot of parents whose kids would be showing some little acts of compassion, but maybe they do not have, an opportunity to tell it to the world. So that is how the idea originated.
Awesome. Awesome. I think what you said was it's so relevant and so beautiful. And it is really true, because we think that we don't have time to go out and do something out of the way. But really, compassion is all about integrating it into our daily lives. And like so many other things, like we think that we don't have time for many things, but it's actually doable. So thank you for bringing that. And kudos to you and Anjali for bringing this and making this a solid project and bringing happiness to so many people around the world and showing that it is possible, right? Through the stories of these little souls. They're not even grown-ups yet, and yet they have shown the way. So it's just wonderful.
Okay, on this note, let's take a break.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita talk about two growing categories, mental health and pets. They give us a rundown on why mental health apps have seen a rise, especially as a result of the lockdown. They also analyze the significant growth in the pets category of consumer goods. We often feel that we don't get paid enough for what we do. Join Chetna on Say No to Drama as she talks about self-worth. On Big Talk About Tiny Humans, Dr Meghna and Devishobha discuss why feminism is a dirty word and why people find this term problematic. Sudisha and Arushi from All Things Policy talk about how the Indian economy pointed towards a 30% decline since 2016 in the number of employed young adults. And on The Longest Constitution, Priya looks at the long history of how laws on property are biased against women and how women have fought back to challenge these laws. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth really does help us. And also, please, a rating if you could. That is also extremely helpful to us. And remember, we're also on YouTube. You can check out ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to get a list of the different channels that we operate on YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Bank of Baroda, India Water Portal, and Max Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back. Anjali and Deepika, I'm just curious, why do you think compassion is so relevant to inculcate in today's world? Why do you think we need to have these conversations around kindness and compassion?
Yeah. So, Meghna, like compassion is a basic human trait. And like Deepika just said that, because of our outlook, perception-based outlook, or the busyness in life, we are, slowly kind of distancing ourselves from this compassionate and human self. And, look around ourselves. If we see that we've kind of raising our children in such a competitive environment where it feels that, we are in a ring, that if we have to win, we have to knock somebody off, right? There's so much competition. But at the end of it, across, all the crisis-like situation, across all the challenges, what comes to save the day is your compassion, kindness, and empathy, right? And so, you feel that while it is important that the children are taught math, science, languages, etc., it is important that we are raising individuals who are kind and compassionate, who understand the purpose of life. And so I feel that it is very important to be talking about it, to be having conversations about it as to how we can bring back focus on this very important trait or a quality, which is inherent, but, slowly getting lost.
No, I completely agree, especially when you said that, today's hyper-competitive world. So the Indian education system, right, it reinforces this spirit of hyper-competition, right? Don't you think that goes against the very, very spirit of compassion?
It does, Meghna. Unfortunately, it does. And that is why it is all the more important to talk about compassion and kindness and actually how it is making a difference in the real life. And actually, that's what was the seed of an idea, that we're not talking about fantasy. We are not talking about imaginary situations. We have here stories which are very much quotidian, very much day to day, happening in real life by children, which could actually make a lot of difference, because when you hear a story which is real life, you resonate with it, you connect with it, and you feel that, wow, this gives me courage to think and act as that person or that child did when they faced a challenging situation. So yes, it is actually very important to kind of talk and have these stories travel far and wide to each child.
Yes, absolutely. I think what's very unique about the book is also the fact that it gives us an insight into the minds of children, into inside their challenges. It gives us some kind of, an insight into what they are facing. Because as adults, we often think that they have it all easy, and some of their challenges are not real challenges, in the world. But when you read it, you understand how much heart and soul they put into each of their situations, each of their challenges, and how they think, how they go through the process and actually come out of it, with a lot of deliberation and a lot of consideration and a lot of weight around the entire issue. And it's just beautiful to think that as adults we stay with them, and yet we are not so aware of what's going on in their heads, the beautiful things, the challenging things. It's a very beautiful project that you have put together, Anjali and Deepika. Really kudos to you.
Thank you so much, Devishobha.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, like, what was the process like? I know you reached out with a request and with a notice for parents to, intimate their children to write stories, and these are all written by kids themselves, right? So,
Yeah.
what was the process like? What did you go through? In the process, what kind of stories did you receive? How did you process them? What were your selection criteria? I would just like to know a little more about the entire process.
Yeah, so before we start the process, I would really like to tell about, how Anjali and I, got into this together.
Okay, sure.
Because that I think that's also an interesting part. So when this idea struck me, I just, very randomly started putting messages on Facebook and WhatsApp groups that, if you have any stories of your children, please reach out. And, I'm planning to write a book. And in one of the groups, I had Anjali there. And the idea, resonated with her as well. And till then, we had only met once, I guess, that too in an award function. And it was a very, very brief connect. And we knew each other through Charter for Compassion only on WhatsApp group. And she reached out to me that she would like to, be part of this. And since then, she only made the idea bigger. And, she had such beautiful and, very good ideas to make it bigger and bigger. Because when I started, I was thinking very small. And, then we collaborated, and it was a beautiful journey. And we have not met, the book, we are working on this book since last 2 years, and we haven't met even once during this time. Yeah. So everything thanks to COVID. And it has been a very, very beautiful journey. And, you do not know someone very personally, and then there is, so I'm just trying to say that there are some things which bind people together so much that you do not even need to know the people. So personally, I believe that the foundation that Anjali and I were coming from was so strong, that everything else, knowing each other or not knowing each other, did not make any difference to us. And I think that itself is a part of, compassion and empathy, the foundation that we had.
Correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll just add on to that beautiful note that Deepika shared, that yes, thank you, Deepika, for all that compassion and love. But yes, that's how it all started. And then we, as you said, Devishobha, we started spreading the idea on social media, reached out to Charter for Compassion network. So one thing which, we were clear was that we wanted to make it a diverse and inclusive compilation of stories. We wanted to show that, compassion is a thread which binds us all across our diversities, differences, religions, ethnicities. And that's what we thought. We should, reach out more and more and collect all these acts from as far as we can. So Charter for Compassion Network helped us a lot in sharing about what the vision, our vision, and what we are trying to do in different countries through their network. And we actually got beautiful acts from different parts of the world: Pakistan, Atlanta, Singapore, and then Australia, Jordan, apart from like different parts of India as well. So, we've got like more than 120 entries initially, and some were written as like good stories, very well written stories, and some just came to us as acts, just 5-6 lines, which came from either an educator or a parent saying that, when my child was 6 years old, this is what I saw as an act from him, and this really moved me. And actually, those were very beautiful and inspiring acts. So like this, we got a collection of acts. Then we reached out to these children. We interviewed a good number of them. We spoke to them as to what went on in their mind when this particular thing happened. Why did they choose to act in a certain way? And the conversations were amazing. And that's what helped us kind of stitch all of this together, in a story, in an engaging story format, and kind of say that, yes, this is how the book is now looking as. Yeah.
So when you went and spoke to those kids whose stories you chose to finally include, what were some of your learnings? What were some of the themes that you saw? Were there some commonalities in their children? Were they being raised in certain similar manner? Like what did you find? What were some of your personal learnings?
Yeah. So thing was that they felt for the other person. So in the sense that either it was a stranger, either it was an animal, or it was their own friend. It all started from that empathetic perspective, and not sure about how they were being raised or how it came to them, but they chose to act in that point in time. So that courage, that was very much visible, the way they explained or they narrated and shared with us. And perhaps the way they were kind of raised also. I mean, the empathy actually shown very clearly even when they spoke about or recollected the incident.
Right. Awesome. So, it could be just your, personal observations, but what do you think would have been the ingredient in highlighting this characteristic in their personalities? I mean, from your readings, did you glean any personal observations, any common threads?
So yeah, I was here sharing in few cases, like they attributed it to certain schools that they were going to. For example, we had a few acts from Tonglan in Dehradun, and they were kind of being raised with that kind of teaching and that kind of atmosphere, which kind of made them act in a certain way when they were in a challenging situation. So that could definitely be a part of it. Yeah, I mean, nothing else.
Sure. Incidentally, Meghna and I were just recording another episode last week, and this is exactly one of the things that we were talking about, where children, we see other people do certain things, and we think, how to put that quality intentionally into them. And some of these things do matter, right? The environment and the kind of intention we put into the entire the environment, and even their own selves and their own acts, it makes a lot of difference. So thank you for bringing that to the fore. And Meghna, do you have any more?
Yeah, absolutely. So compassion research shows that compassion has been linked to changes in the brain. So I was just wanting to understand from you, what are some of these changes? What are some of the social benefits, psychological benefits, and emotional benefits associated with compassion?
Yeah, so Meghna, it is proven that the brain is plastic, and there can be changes that can be made in the brain. So if somebody practices compassion, it does not only benefit the other person, but the that feeling of self-worth that you develop in yourself, that I was able to help somebody in need, that gives you a validation for yourself. And once you start practicing it, it also develops a feeling of gratitude, because you are seeing everybody with an eye of empathy. And then you realize that what is it that I have, but the other person does not have. And then you start becoming more grateful. So I think it all starts from self-awareness. You become more self-aware, you become more aware of your surroundings. And I would like to give one more example of my son here. When I started, this gratitude thing with him while sleeping, when he was, I think, 6 years old. And when we started, the first day he ended with, I said, what are you grateful for? And he said, I am grateful for my mama, papa, and the toys that I have. And he had nothing else to say. And when we, started practicing it as a daily exercise, we reached a point when he would come up with at least 20 things.
Wow.
And then we had to pick the top 3 out of it, because then in everything, he started realizing the positivity around it.
Absolutely. It's
So,
gratitude is so
that changed
powerful.
his perception.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we would check, we would put the first 3 out of the 20. So that is how, these small little things which we think they are not very useful and they are just philosophical things, do not work in your real life. But I have personally experienced that it does. And that gratitude exercise itself made him more compassionate towards others, because when he's feeling gratitude for what he has, he also started feeling empathetic towards the other person. And then he started acting, as a compassionate person and doing his part to help the other person. So it's all linked. And, that increases your self-confidence, your self-worth, and your worth as a human being.
Absolutely, without doubt. And in fact, it's an exercise that greatly benefits parents and other adults as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I highly recommend the gratitude exercise.
Yeah. And just adding to what Deepika said, and, taking a cue from there, that we thought that while we are sharing these stories with the world, with the children, educators, and the parents, why not give them a moment to pause and reflect as to what they got from the stories? So if you will see, in the book, after every story, we have something like compassion in practice. Where we leave the reader with a thought, a reflection, or an activity exercise that, hey, you look around yourself and try to link the idea that you got from the story with your life, your things around you. So, that the idea, like as Deepika was saying, that when kind of pushed to think more about things you are grateful for, on the similar thoughts, helping the reader to kind of think as to how they can imbibe some of the things that they read in the story around compassion and link it with their own life. So yeah, that's another thing that we've included in the book.
That's lovely. I would love to know what some of these exercises are, because that was going to be my next question. I was wanting to ask you, how can we actually inculcate compassion in our kids, whether at home or at school? And what are some of these, these micro exercises that we can do with them, which are easy, doable on an everyday basis, to sort of really help them operate from a more compassionate stance?
So yeah, I was just talking about this beautiful story that we have about self-compassion. The first story written by Ananya about how we actually become very hard on ourselves, become harsh on ourselves because the way we look, or how the world is seeing us. And it's important to be self-compassionate before we be compassionate towards others, friends, family. And so one of the exercises that we've given there is that, look yourself in the mirror and kind of list down the most, 5 things you appreciate about yourself every day.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
keep adding to this list. And
lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, similar exercises are there after every story, which kind of brings about.
It's actually a great exercise for body image.
Yeah.
Recently
True.
on my
Correct.
Insta, put out a reel on this, that 3 experiments for body image, and this is actually one of them. So again, works for children as much as it works for adults.
Yeah.
True.
Beautiful.
And one thing that I would also like to add, Meghna, it is not an exercise, but a very, very basic thing that we as parents can do to, inculcate these things in our kids is, one is self-awareness, very, very important. And, to let them feel what they are feeling. As parents, we try to regulate their emotions a lot. So, that is, I think, the first step let them feel whatever they want to feel. Let us not regulate their emotions. But yeah, if there is a necessity to regulate the actions, regulating actions is very different from regulating emotions. Because, if we allow them to feel whatever they want to feel, that's where, the self-compassion comes in. That's where the feeling of empathy comes in. If we, shut them down saying that, whatever you are feeling is rubbish, it does not stand anywhere in real life, that itself makes them feel less, and feel less about themselves and as well as about others. So one request from my side to all parents is that, allow your children to feel whatever they want to feel, and listen to them, because, you have to walk the talk. If you act empathetic towards them, that, oh my God, yes, I understand what you would be feeling because of this incident, they learn to become empathetic. If they reject their emotion, then they learn to reject the emotions and feelings of others as well.
Yeah,
That's beautiful, Deepika.
Yeah.
In fact, I could not agree with you more. My whole life is dedicated to, helping parents raise kids with emotional intelligence. And this is the foundation of emotional intelligence, that we don't black paint feelings. All feelings are okay. All behaviors are not. All feelings are okay. And I can't tell you how important, it's so simple, but it's so important in, helping them accept their feelings, embracing them, because it's really the foundation of everything, including emotional intelligence, which is, by the way, very, very highly valued, much more highly valued than even IQ today everywhere.
Absolutely.
So I can't thank you enough for highlighting this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I also think that, like you said, right, because it's a reflection on the children's behavior, and their their acts are also a reflection of how their parents process their emotional journeys. So in fact, science also supports it, right? Every day, even from the time we wake up, children can easily mirror our emotions. They can mirror whatever we are feeling, even without our uttering a single word. They can read our faces so well. If you're annoyed in the morning and you don't tell a word to your child can figure out that you are annoyed, and they will get cranky in one way or the other. They will not probably show it in the way you are expecting, but it will reflect on them. So it's so important to regulate. And you also made a very beautiful point, Deepika, where you differentiated between regulating actions and regulating emotions. I think that was very well put. It's a point that we miss most of the times. So this whole journey of the connection between emotion and compassion and back has to be done as a family. Just know each other's, like you said, study their acts and know what's going on with them, and also learn from them, right? Because it's so revelatory. The stories there are so revelatory, and sometimes you think, oh my God, is this child of all of 6 years old, is she or he capable of so much feeling, so much thought, and also so much courage to act upon it? It really surprises us. And yes, indeed, it's true, children are capable of a lot more than we give them credit for, and that's common knowledge, but we don't acknowledge it so much, right? So yeah, that is why I keep saying that this book is so important, and this is going to be relevant forever. So yeah. Any other points that the authors want to make?
Yeah.
Deepika, Anjali?
We'll just say, Devishobha and Meghna, that we really want that these stories touch and inspire many young minds, adults, to act from their heart. That's what has been the purpose of bringing out this book. And, it feels that this is just a beginning of a journey. Like, we can really take compassion like a movement to have all the children understand and embrace it and actually practice it. So yeah, I mean, like you said, that it is something which is always remain meaningful, and we would love to hear from children and the parents and educators who hear this podcast, listen to this podcast, to write to us and share that if there's something around them with their children, their students, which actually touch their heart and they feel, that could actually inspire others. So, yeah.
Deepika, any last words?
Yeah, just as Anjali mentioned, that this book should really inspire a lot of people, a lot of kids and adults as well, because it is not a regular moral science book where the figures are fictitious but real. And every small act can make a difference in somebody's life. So whenever you get an opportunity, just perform that act. You will not only help the other person but yourself as well, and it is contagious. It is more contagious than COVID, I would say. Compassion is contagious.
Yeah.
That's
It could be our
lovely.
tagline: compassion is contagious.
Yeah,
Nice tagline.
and it calls for a celebration. Compassion calls for a celebration.
Yeah,
We should make
absolutely.
that the tagline for this episode
Yeah.
title.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
It's very interesting. We're talking about compassion. We're talking about acting from the heart. But traditionally, this has been looked at as a weakness in the world where we value, logic and numbers and brain and all of that. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because, today when the world is reeling under uncertainty, we're just getting out of a pandemic. We have this Ukrainian crisis going on. The one constant element that you see that is keeping hope alive is compassion, right? So I'm so glad that we had the chance to have this conversation with both of you, Anjali and Deepika. And we really, really thank you for coming here, for accepting our invitation, and for sharing your experience of curating this wonderful book with us. I thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and hoping to read this book and hoping to learn and also inspire. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for all the podcast listeners, the link to the book will be just included in the podcast description, so you can go ahead and look up link for purchase.
Thank you so much, Meghna and Devishobha, for having us over. We really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for coming over.
So that's our episode for today. Thank you for listening to Big Talk About Tiny Humans, our podcast for parents and educators.
Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to share it with your friends and family.
Listen and subscribe to Big Talk About Tiny Humans on the IVM Podcasts app, website, and all major audio platforms. We are available everywhere.
You can follow us on social media and online. Meghna is at The Therapist Mommy on Instagram and YouTube. And you can check out her website, raisingfamilyacademy.com, for a transformative course on raising a child with emotional intelligence.
And Devishobha is at KidsKintha on Twitter and Instagram. And check out kidskintha.com for in-depth articles and events on parenting and child development.
While you're at it, do also check out other great shows from the IVM Podcasts network at shows.ivmpodcasts.com. And IVM is on social media at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
We'll catch you again on our next episode.
You're the people pleaser, right? Oh, yes. Or then desperately seeking the one? Or wait, you're the one who doesn't think they're ever good enough. Oh. So much drama. And for what? Is it doing you any good? Listen to me. I'm Chetna, your favorite positive action coach. Yes, I'm the one who has been dropping all those truth bombs on every episode. Oh, no. And it's time you learn to say no to drama. That's also what my podcast is called. And a new episode is out every Monday and Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, as well as all major podcasting platforms.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार